Hey everybody, this is Perch. Hey Joe, how you doing?
I'm okay, Perch. How are you?
Well, I'm great, but I've got one question for you.
Please.
Do you understand why fans are angry?
Well, that's a really complicated question because, on one hand, I completely understand, but on the other hand, I don't get it at all.
Nice. Well played. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Uh, I had a number of creators text and say, yeah, I still don't get it. I'm seeing all these people say I must be an idiot for not getting it. I still don't get it. Like, I don't get it. And then I did finally, full transparency, full honesty, I did get one text from a creator, you know who,
Mhm.
who goes, yeah, I totally understand. And fuck those guys. I like teasing them. So there you go. Everybody's a dick for Christmas. No, but
Right?
let's wander into a topic that is not controversial at all. Nobody is upset about it. It's a nice, boring, benign topic, and that's AI art.
Yeah, no. I figured, we talked about NFTs a while back.
Yeah,
So fuck it, right?
yeah.
Why not?
So how are you? So I think everybody's more or less knows what AI art is, but or maybe
Mhm.
they've read about it, or maybe you could just pause the video and go find out. But what's
Yeah.
your take on AI art? Because it seems like people have a definite opinion on this.
My opinion on it is it's too new, and I don't. I understand enough to know I don't understand all of it, so I don't have to talk about it every day.
it's I'm surprised by the immediate gut reaction. And before we start recording, you used an analogy I like regarding
Mhm.
torches and
Yeah.
Charlottesville. No, I'm just kidding, not that one.
No. No. No.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing. No, go ahead. What was your analogy? Because that fit really well.
Yeah, I was basically like Twitter, social media. A lot of this is everyone's a villager from Frankenstein, and they have their pitchforks and torches ready to go, but like nothing's happened yet.
Yeah, there's no
and,
monster.
and yeah, there's no monster, and they're just like they're just waiting and looking around for anything. It's like they hear a pin drop or something, be like, oh, let's get that. And
Yeah.
just like that's the whole thing, and it's so deranged to me that it's like it it seems like it's having less of an effect while the people around it are getting more rabid. Like it's a weird like contraction, but in it's getting
Yeah.
crazier. Like I hate it.
I've played around with it a little bit, and what I've kind of come to the conclusion of is that it's good for pinups. You can
Sure.
certainly do pinups. And it's an interesting technology. It's clearly extremely early,
Yes.
and it's going to be at least 10 years. I mean, we got to go through the whole phase where everybody makes fun cartoon emojis of themselves, and then some
Yeah.
avatars that look like super cute, and then we're going to go through the porn days of lots of porn. We're kind of in those days already, in fairness.
Oh
but
yeah.
but I do you see a world? Again, I'm seeing people go into hysterics about this, about
Yeah.
how this is going to absolutely destroy the comic industry. It's taking money out of people's pockets. Artists
Mhm.
aren't getting paid. It's going to absolutely decimate everything. I saw one today from somebody, I won't mention who, but she's an editor,
Sure.
and she is going on about like it's stuff like this is why Walt Simonson's not getting a check anymore. And I'm like, you bitch, you're not giving Walt Simonson a check now.
That's news to Walt.
Yeah. AI art. It turns out the reason why Walt isn't on a monthly comic right now is because of AI art, as it turns out. What do you think of
Wow,
that?
that's that if that was the case, I'd be upset.
Yeah.
But no, it's look, and this is the whole like disclaimer, like neither Perch or myself are advocating for people to freely use copyrighted images and claim them as their own, because I know that's part of the argument, and of course I don't think that's right. And it's weird that people seem to have to say that.
Yeah, it is weird because some of the same people who are making this argument about copyrighted art and this is stealing and everything else are completely okay with piracy of
Yeah.
comics. That piracy is okay because it's poor people should be able to read comics too, and it's like why are you on about piracy? And yet they're throwing a absolute tantrum about copyrighted material. This feels like super hypocritical bullshit.
Not people in social media.
I know.
It's
I
not a
guess.
thing that happens.
Do you this? It's just too early.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. The results are cool. I'll tell you the
Yeah.
thing that I liked about AI generation, and it had nothing to do with art, is the other day I wanted to see if I could make a contract. So I used an AI bot and put in a bunch of terms of where I was going and if it would whip out a contract. And it did. And I gave it to the lawyer that I work with. And he's like, holy shit, this is pretty good. And I felt so good because I thought, I'm going to put that lawyer out of work.
No, that's great. You see, I feel like if we were talking about putting lawyers out of work, that Twitter would be a lot happier about it.
That is true.
Like, oh, in that case, sure.
But the art, so do you see a day, a near day? And I'm not talking about somebody doing a stunt like Bad Idea or somebody doing a crowdfunded book is kind of a gimmick. But do you see a day where somebody is going to put out like at Marvel and DC, they're going to hire an AI farm to put out a comic? And it's like, this book is written by Tom King and an AI program.
I mean, that would be a good follow up to the Vision if Marvel ever lets him back. But
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
yeah, but that said, I mean, no, I can see there being some crowdfunded books like that. I could see some smaller publishers maybe testing the waters on something like that in the near future, especially if the characters don't have any hands.
Yeah, sure.
But one thing I was thinking about with this that people aren't talking about is there's a potential here for something in the fairly near future that might be a hybrid AI
Hmm.
situation where you could potentially get things you could have never gotten otherwise.
Right.
For example, Norm Brayfogle, years ago, like obviously this wouldn't help him now, but after his stroke, uh,
Hmm.
he, he wasn't able to draw the same and all that. Like if he had something like AI assisted art,
Hmm.
where they could have, just downloaded his whole Batman portfolio and he might have been able to, or the whole catalog of the work, maybe there could have been a situation where it's like, oh, well, we can get some, more or less lay out a page how it would be. And then he's only tinkering with it and it's still his art and they could still pay him and get him work or something like that.
I think that would have been great.
Yeah.
What about George Perez? So
Yeah.
he's a guy, when he was alive, who's having trouble drawing a
Yeah.
monthly book, struggling with some of that. What would you say about a scenario where George Perez is the curator? So meaning he's using this AI assistant art
Yeah.
to basically be able to put out a book. He has the say of what gets used, what doesn't, how the scene is. He basically becomes
Yeah.
almost a creative director of himself with the
Yeah.
assistance of AI. I think that would be pretty awesome for these artists.
Yeah, and here's an example of something that can actually happen potentially now.
Hmm.
It would obviously it would depend if the parties were interested, but we have talked about before this idea of like, oh, bring back Todd McFarlane on Spider-Man and it'll sell gangbusters.
Yeah.
So Marvel wouldn't be interested in paying Todd's rate, I don't think. To a rate that would make it worth it for Todd to want to dedicate X amount of time to draw Spider-Man for a year.
Right.
But what if we're in a situation where, hey, we'll pay you a rate we're comfortable with, but we're using, we're AI generating, like you upload all the different character designs, we go through your portfolio of Spider-Man, and it's AI assisted. So it's doing all like the layouts for you. So you're basically touching up pages.
Hmm.
So maybe he's not doing monthly books anymore, but if he only had to spend between 1 to 3 hours on a page, to get it where he wants it to go before sending it off,
Hmm.
suddenly that rate and that time commitment makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's interesting.
Yeah. So, and if you get it to a point, and again, this is hypothetical. If people come in and say, like, well, it's not going to look like that, like, obviously, we're talking about
Right.
if it is a little further along a few years later and it does look like it, because if it is Todd and it's his work, it's only his work and
Right.
he's directing it, you can't really argue that he's like stealing, that people are using other things
Hmm.
or not. And if it looks like a book if it looks like a Spider-Man book that Todd drew in the 90s, no one's gonna like the amount of people that will care
Hmm. I
is
like this.
so minuscule.
I like this angle because so put it this way again. I have a hard time viewing, and people can say it's naive. Corporations do things all the time. Fine, but I defy you to make a credible argument that Marvel or DC is going to suddenly say, "Fuck copyrights," and I'm just going to, hire some, basement engineers to create AI art for several comics, put people out of work, and the fact that they're borrowing from Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, whoever it happens to be, and just ripping
Yeah,
off, that's fine with me. I'm just going to do it. There's
yeah,
not a world where that would happen. I'm sorry, it would not. And before everybody
yeah,
goes into corporations or soulless monsters, Marvel and DC have done tons of shitty stuff. They have not just started gleefully ripping off other artists and
yeah.
putting stuff in that way.
Yeah, obviously, ripping off artists, claiming other material that's not yours is yours, like that's still wrong. That didn't change along the way. Like that's
Right.
still obviously wrong. But at the end of the day, I don't think if you did something like that, like with Todd, or another example, let's say let's say Jim Lee retires from DC in the next 5 years, something like that. Again, hypothetical. I'm not
Hmm.
wishing for it to happen. I'm just saying hypothetically. And then suddenly, in like a Joe Q kind of way, it's like, ooh, I could go back to Marvel. And if Jim Lee did an AI assisted of just his art and was like, I'm doing an X-Men run, it's
Sure.
going to come out on time because I don't have to put in, a day or 2 days worth of work for a page. It's all AI assisted from what I've already done
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
new images I put in and character designs. And I'm only spending between 1 to maybe 4 hours per page. So I know it's going to come out. It's like,
Yeah.
who would, how many people in a shop in the direct market who are buying things on Amazon and Walmart, as long as it looks like Jim Lee drew it,
Yeah.
they're not gonna be upset about like it's just that's
No, they wouldn't. I mean, I think you should come clean in the production. Meaning, I think
of
in the
course you
credits it should
have
say
to.
AI assisted, etc. But again, I'm trying to see what is the problem here. If an artist elects to use this technology to assist themselves, eyes are open. The artist is not ripping off themselves. The publisher is paying the artist whatever rate. Now, I mean, maybe you get into a weird argument where it's like, yeah, but then the page rate would go down. I mean, maybe whatever. That's again, if the artist is willing to take that check, that's their business.
Yeah.
And if the customers are informed, this is not true art, not pen and pencil art, but it's AI assisted art, buyer beware, or buyer, you know what's going on. This seems like a decent solution, and I really do like the solution for aging artists that struggle with the page a little bit. It'd be nice to see some more of their work, and if they're controlling it, it feels pretty good to me.
Yeah, like I think there's a version where something like that can happen. I think there's a lot of people who like I get thinking about worst case scenarios, but but the problem is people get so caught up in it they only think about the worst case scenario with a certain technology or new thing. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, within some people's lifetimes. I mean, it was before either of us, but the idea of a singer, like a lounge singer using a microphone,
Yeah.
was offensive to people. People were like, "You're not a real singer if you can't project your own voice. If you use a microphone, you're not an actual singer."
Yeah,
That
no,
was
that's true. I was
yeah,
not born yet, so but
yes.
thank you. By the way, thank you for making that assumption. That's always nice of
No,
you.
no problem.
Uh,
But yeah, it's but this is not new. This is a thing that happens every time. A lot of the people who are upset about this now, in a decade from now, aren't going to know what the hell you're talking about when you bring up how they were upset about it.
yeah,
That's just life.
it does feel like the NFT situation where people lost their minds as the destruction of all art, and that's how people were describing it. This is all art value. The environment, the earth is going to get destroyed. Everything is fucked because
Yeah.
of NFTs, largely, talked about by people who had no idea what NFTs were.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, it feels like that again, and kind of like I said to me, the technology's too young. Like I don't
Yeah.
anybody who's saying I'm seeing kind of a little bit of the opposite of AI art is the future of all things art, and there will be nothing else but AI art. I think that is equally silly, but
Oh yeah.
the hysterics on the other side are just absurd. To your point, it's a bunch of people. They've got their torches out. It's Charlottesville. No, sorry, it's Dr. Frankenstein,
Yes.
and they're just hunting for a monster.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Well, Joe, thank you very much for this discussion on AI art, and I think we'll talk again real soon, right?
Yeah. Sure. Maybe after we record the video we're doing after this one.
Yeah, in about 10 seconds from now.
Yeah. Exactly.